Well, again, good morning, everybody. It's Sean Wood from the VERICO head office. Hope you're all doing well, and good afternoon as well to those on the east. Thank you for all logging on. I do see a few others logging on, and I see some new names. So those that are on, welcome aboard. Welcome to VERICO. For the new people to VERICO, I see in the call, and welcome to our VERICO Professional Success Series with the Focal Point and Brian Tracy Group. It's something we've been running for a few weeks now, or a couple months now, I guess it would be. And all of these calls are recorded, so if you've missed any, you can definitely go back and watch any past recordings in the VERICO Academy. But we are excited to have everybody on today, and today's host is going to be Rupert Whiting from Focal Point, and you've heard him here in the past, and you're going to hear a lot more from Rupert and the rest of the team for the next many coming months here. So without further ado, let's get it passed over to the guy you really want to hear from, not me. It's Rupert. So Rupert, over to you. Can you hear me, Rupert? Because we can't hear you.
Yeah, sorry, Steve. That was me just unmuting there. I'm good. Thank you. Thanks for that introduction. I appreciate it. Hello, everybody. It's great. We enjoy doing these sessions for you. We keep them to an hour, and it's our privilege to do that. So let's get going. I just want to move this on. We're going to cover something today called the 3 I's of the entrepreneur. I just show here a quick picture of me, just so that people who haven't seen me before put a face to a name. And as I said before, I'm looking forward to meeting a bunch of you guys in the coming weeks and months. What we're going to do quickly is review the last session. As Sean just mentioned, there's a few of you who weren't on, and those of you who were on, it was a month ago. I want to refresh because it's really important. These things build upon one another, and we need to go over that. And then we're going to deal with the 3 I's of an entrepreneur, and basically that's about the challenges of business ownership. It's complex, and there's something here called the hourly rate that we're going to deal with. Now, I'm happy to take questions at the end. I'm also happy to take questions as we're going through, if it's something that's getting in your way of your sort of ongoing understanding, or you're kind of really not grasping what I'm saying. So feel free to use the question box on the right, or to *6 and just ask me to reiterate. So ideally, we'll take them at the end, but if it's getting in the way of your understanding, we'll move on, or we'll take them as we go through. Very quickly, whether you're a broker or an agent, you're an entrepreneur in our eyes. So I want you to listen to it from the appropriate aspect. I'm going to deal with some examples which apply to brokers who have a number of agents working for them, and some examples where we're talking just about agent work directly. But both of you, both styles of business, this applies to equally. And what we covered last time, very quickly, was something called the law of belief, or the iceberg concept. And what that said, if you remember, was that only 10% of what you see is ever really above the surface. 90% of what created a result lies beneath, and that lies in some of the unseen actions, and they're driven by your thoughts, and they're driven by your beliefs. Now, as we go through the 3 I's of the entrepreneur, some of you are going to feel, a little bit uneasy. You're going to start to have some resistance. And all that is, guys, is your beliefs are being tested. Some of your traditional, your common, or your habitual thoughts are being challenged. So just bear that in mind. If this was simple, if this was going to be a great love-in session, then VERICO wouldn't have employed Focal Point to do it. We are all about challenging common beliefs. We're all about getting different results, and that comes from having a challenged belief. So hopefully most of you today are going to feel a belief being challenged and know what that feels like. So bear with it, stick with it, and work through it, and you'll get different actions and you'll get different results. We also covered something called a victor-victim, and these are 2 ways that you can be. You can either be a victim and be above the line, and for those of you very quickly who weren't there, PROVES is an acronym for you are proactive, you take responsibility for being in the position you're in, you take ownership for getting out of it, you have a vision of the future, you deal only in excellence, and you keep your mind on success. A victim, however, bends, and that's an acronym for blames, excuses, is negative, is in denial, and has a scarcity mentality. And particularly what we're talking about here with the three I's of an entrepreneur, the scarcity bit really comes in because we're talking about time, and a victim thinks that there's a limited amount of time. A victor knows that there's unlimited amounts of time if you leverage it correctly. Okay, so don't be a victim. If you feel yourself feeling, hey, I haven't got time for this, then you're being below the line. Treat yourself like a victor, act like a victor, and that's how these two things link in. Okay, so that's just a very, very quick review, and as Sean said, the whole session, the whole 45 minutes or whatever it took, is on the academy. So what is the three I's of the entrepreneur, this thing we're going to talk about now? Well, it's a simple model, and it helps you understand that whenever you're dealing with your business, you have three different perspectives that you can be looking at looking at your business through. Now, one thing I absolutely need you to understand is I know that they are all valuable, and I'm not for 1 minute saying that you shouldn't do any one of the three or any two of the three. They're all valuable and they all need completing. The problem is that right now you're unconscious about which perspective that you're looking at things through, and therefore you're being reactive and you can't take control of the appropriate mix. In 40 minutes time or so, 45 minutes of time or so, you're going to have a greater awareness of this model. You're going to be clearer on what it means to you in your business, and you're going to be able to take different actions as a result of that. So that's what this is all about. It's about throwing a model up there and saying, do you see it? Do you understand it? Yes, I get it. I understand how that applies to my business, and I'm going to use that with clarity to take different actions. So the first I, let's address this one straight away. This is the guy, as I was saying to somebody just yesterday, actually, this is the guy that got you into trouble in the first place. This is the guy that got you where you are now. This is the person that said, hey, I don't like my current job. How can I earn more money, have a lifestyle that I enjoy, work on interesting projects, blah, 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 all the questions that you ask yourself, and being a mortgage broker or being a mortgage agent was what suggested itself. You looked into the future, you set yourself an income target, a lifestyle target, a contribution to society target, all those sort of things. You looked at your life through this eye, and you looked into the future, and you answered those questions. And you're asking now, as a business owner, how can I improve my business? How can I get more ideal clients? What happens if I advertise in this area? What happens if I go to this silent auction? What happens if I join this networking group? These are all great questions to look through the first eye. And the E there stands for entrepreneur. And we talk about the three I's of the entrepreneur, but really there's only one I which is truly entrepreneurial, and that's this guy or girl who is looking to the future and trying to see what pitfalls are there, trying to understand what the future may hold. So asking really great questions like that. The second I, another way that you need to look at your business, is you need to understand the facts and the figures, the results, compare those to the forecasts that you have. You need to be looking a little, pressing there, you need to be looking a little bit into the past and saying, what happened there? Where did I find that ideal client? Or where did I find that raft of time-wasting prospects that just sucked up that whole week, and I have no hope of making any commissions out of them? What was I doing to go and get those people? How did I attract them? And therefore, what do I need to stop doing? Or where did I find this thick vein of gold of people who want my services? How do I recreate that? So you're looking at facts and figures and results and forecasts and understanding if you're on track. Asking, how much did that cost? How much did that promotion cost me, and what did I get back in return? Who's been referring me, and what have I done for them that's causing them to refer me? All those kind of questions are M questions or managerial questions. Very useful, essential to the smooth running of a business. So we're asking those questions in I2. Now, I3 is interesting because there's two separate ways you can also look at I3. It's no surprise that it's focused on the present. If the first one's focused on the future, the second one's focused on the past. The third eye is logically going to be focused on the present. So there's two ways to look at it. The lady on the left there, she's stressed out. I mean, she wouldn't be that stressed. If that pile on her desk there was mortgage applications to fill in, she might be a little bit stressed, but I think she'd be a bit happier than she's looking. But, that's probably her expenses or marketing budget or something or other that's going to stressed out. There's just so much to do, not enough time to do it is how she's feeling. But I show the image on the right there, some chap jumping into the Caribbean, because I3 in the present is very often our comfort zone. It might be stressful, but it's also very much aligned with our self-image. When we joined to do mortgage brokering, originating loans and speaking with people and going out and networking was all kind of part of what we thought that we were buying into. I'm sure that as a broker, there's a bunch of stuff down here in the present that you hadn't necessarily expected to when you're running a bigger business. But one of the traps of I3 that we need to recognize early on is that, to a degree, it's our comfort zone. It's certainly more comfortable than I2 and I1 for most of us. For instance, for me, the thought of facts and figures and forecasting and certainly preparing the data for analysis. I love the analysis. I just hate preparing data for analysis. It actually gives me physical, reactions to it. And I'm sure there's a few people out there nodding at that, because it's like, I hate doing it, but I know it needs to be done. The comfort zone is what I'm doing now, which is presenting and talking and coaching and delivering value to people. I love it, but for me, it's my I3 activity. And really, in the T mode, in I3, there's only one question, and that is, what's next? What's the next task I need to do? What do I need? What's the next line to fill in on the application form? What's the next application to fill in? What's the next lender to call? What's the next client or prospect to follow up with? That's pretty much all you ask yourself in technician mode. So you can see in entrepreneur, manager, and technician mode, you're asking yourself very, very different questions, and your focus is in very different places. So that's the model. So let's examine it a little bit deeper. How long are you spending each year, each month, each week in each mode? And just to give you an idea, you're probably working about 200 hours a month. So 20 working days, 10 hours a day, something like that, give or take bank holidays and things, or the odd early knockoff for the kids. Maybe you're working 200 hours a month. If you're doing this part-time, maybe it's 100 hours a month, but you still have a business to run. So how long are you spending in entrepreneurial mode? And I'll just go back and remind you, how long are you asking yourself, how can I generate more business? What happens if I join this networking group? What happens if I take so-and-so out to dinner with a specific view to getting referrals from them, for instance? How long are you asking yourself those questions? And what we find is that most people say, well, I spend quite a lot of time doing that. I mean, I drive to and from work, or I drive the kids to and from school every day. That's an hour in the car, and that's all I'm asking myself. Well, I ask you, discount that. Don't count that in the entrepreneurial time. I'm talking about sitting down in a quiet office with a pad and paper, maybe a colleague, to really focus on it, not to idly think about and wish what might happen, because it's only true entrepreneurial stuff when an action plan comes out of it. The action plan actually feeds what the technician needs to do, but it's the entrepreneur who delivers the action plan, or who creates it with the help of some information from the manager. Okay, so how long are you spending in that mode every day, week, month, year? And how long are you spending really examining your facts and figures and results and comparing them to your forecasts and drawing conclusions as to what that means to your business and going forwards? Versus how long are you spending in technician mode, prospecting, writing up applications, dealing with lenders, learning, growing in a technical sense in terms of understanding about rates and new mortgage styles and all these changes that come around self-employment. How long are you spending in that mode every week? And what you'll find, well, what I imagine you'll find is what our clients, East Coast to West Coast, Canada, America, in fact, globally, find is that, they're not spending anywhere near as much time in E and M mode combined as they are in technician mode. And I understand that, and I'm not suggesting that that you would spend more than 50% of your time in M mode or E mode, but really it generally is about 1%, and sometimes that's an exaggeration of how long people are genuinely spending in E mode. So 1 hour a month, 2 hours a month, really sitting down and thinking about that. And most people it's 0. But consider this: hypothetically, you get a client in your, and you convince them that they are, going to be a client of yours, and you need to fill in the mortgage application. If you could remove yourself from that office there and get somebody else just to fill in the blanks on the mortgage application and work with the client just to get the dry data into the application, how much would you pay that person? Typically, it's going to be not a lot more than $15 an hour, and that might be on the high side, because it's not a terribly skilled task to do, to take down information and decant it from one document to another. So you could get out of the office, get in an intern, so to speak, and get them to decant that information. There's a lot of work goes on at technician mode where you could pay somebody between $25,000 and $35,000 a year to achieve what it is that you're achieving in those moments, in those periods. Think about a manager now. You're doing really, really well in your business, let's say, and you go away on a year off, but you want the business to be here when you get back. So you employ a manager, and all you're asking this manager to do is provide you with a weekly summary of what your pipeline is like, where your revenue is coming from, what your client satisfaction levels are at, what the forecasts are, etc. How much are you paying that guy or girl to look after the business on a managerial level for you on an ongoing basis? And typically, even in a big office, it's going to be $60,000 or less. And if it's part-time, it could be way less. We're talking about an hourly rate here. You probably pay them about $30 an hour to do that for you and send you an email once a week saying, "Don't worry, boss, the business is pointing in this direction. Here's the forecast, and here's what's going on." Okay. But you still want to take the year off, but you want to come back now to a business which is 3, 4, 5, 10 times bigger than you've got now. You want this person to grow the business. You want this person to take control of it and really dominate your market for you. How much are you paying that person? And that, that's the $1 million question, really, is, it depends on how big you want to grow. If you want to go from $100,000 to $300,000 a year, you pay them a decent amount of money. If you want to go from $1 million a year to $3 million a year or $10 million a year, you're going to pay them a lot more. But you see how entrepreneurial thinking and entrepreneurial effort is worth more than managerial and technician work in terms of what you would have to pay somebody to do it for you. So now consider this. If you divide your target income by 2,000, so if you want to earn $100,000 a year, that's a typical headline figure that a lot of people in our industries like to aim for. You assume you're going to work 2,000 hours a year. And how we come to that is 50 weeks a year, 40 hours a week. Sounds a bit low in terms of what most entrepreneurs work, but let's work with it. Typical working year is 2,000 hours. You want to earn 100,000 in that year, you better be earning $50 an hour. That's your hourly rate. So if your hourly rate is $50 an hour, how many hours are you spending on tasks that are valued under your hourly rate? And is it any wonder that many of us, are not earning our target incomes because we're spending time doing tasks that aren't earning what we need to earn every hour. So if you want to earn $200,000 a year, if on average every hour you're not earning $100, you're not going to make it. So in an ideal future state, when you set an action plan as a result of this call, and you generate a different working style, a different working calendar for yourself, how long do you think it's reasonable to be spending in entrepreneur mode? What about manager mode? and you're obviously going to have to borrow that from the T-mode quotient. So what's reasonable? What's going to deliver the results that you need in the next year, the next 2 years? How much time do you need to spend in E-mode? If you can get that up to 5 to 10%, that would be a lot. That would be in a 40-hour week. That's a couple of hours a week just purely thinking in E-mode, sitting down with the door closed, asking yourself the entrepreneurial questions. Similarly for M-mode, if you get that up to 10%, 4 hours a week, an hour a day, going through the numbers, that might even be too much, but going through the numbers and making sure you understand what those numbers are. So you still see you have a lot of time for T-mode, but you've got to create the time for entrepreneurial time. So how much time do you think you need to spend? So you've set yourself a target, 5, 10%, whatever it is that you need to carve out of your week to do the E&M time. What needs to change? We'll come on later on to start, stop, carry-ons, but what has to change? Is it the efficiency of how quickly you can complete an application, or how smoothly you get clients in and process them? Is there a networking event which you've been attending, it takes 2 hours a week, that just delivers zero value to you, that you could just, if you stopped going there and just sat down in your office for 2 hours and ask yourself the right questions, maybe that's all the changes that you need to make. Something needs to change in order for you to get the results that you want. And what can you do right now to start? Most of you are by a computer. Certainly all of you should have a pen and paper to hand. What can you do right now to start? I don't mind if you send an email right now to the person who you we're going to meet for coffee tomorrow and say, you know what, I've just decided I need to spend that hour doing more value-added tasks. Cry off the kind of loose coffee arrangements that you have with people who may or may not deliver value. They're nice and cozy. They're in technician mode because you can fool yourself that you're doing referral marketing, but you're not. You're wasting time. What can you do right now to start to make those changes? And there's going to be a bigger plan behind all of this. There's going to be a much bigger transition from where you are now to the future state that we've described. So when are you going to make that plan? And when are you going to carve out that time? If it's later than this coming Monday afternoon, then you're procrastinating. I get that this afternoon and Friday might be busy, and I get that you might need the weekend for family. But starting Monday, can you carve out an hour and a half to write a plan for what else it is you're going to cut out? What are you going to start adding in to your life to make sure you have this entrepreneurial time? And I'll give you a couple of tools later on that will help with this. But commit now, right in this moment, to when you will make the plan. And as I say, if it's much later than next Monday afternoon, then you're avoiding and procrastinating. It needs to be done. It needs to be done soon. Now, this is a little schematic which I'm making available to anybody who wants it at the end. This is, if we're doing this live, this is the schematic that I draw up on a flip chart for you. Just the entrepreneur looking to the future, the manager looking to the past, and the crazy-eyed technician just focusing on the present. And what I suggest that you do is, if you write to us at VERICO@focalpointcoaching.com, that'll be done on the last slide, don't worry about that, but you'll get this and you can print it out and put it on your desk or in your office or somewhere, and it just be a reminder, right, I get this, I need to spend time in entrepreneur mode. I'm looking back on my week, wow, where did my entrepreneur time go? I've got to make sure I put that in this coming week so that I get my 10% time. And that's just my figure, but I suggest that it's probably reasonable for all of us. 10% in pure entrepreneur time just catapults your business into a different level. So that will be available to you. So now you're asking me for some solutions, I'll bet, because, as I say, your beliefs have been triggered as to what it takes to run the business that you're currently running, and there's no time for anything else. So let's just have a look at some different things you could do. What we know about time management and effectiveness, is that if you can clump tasks, be it phone calls or advertising, writing advertising, or prospecting, or even writing of mortgage applications and things, if you can clump them into 20-minute, 40-minute, hour-long segments, you're going to be much more effective. Where we, as human beings, fall down, especially nowadays with all the bombardment of stimulus that we have, is we get distracted. And I can't remember where I learned this, but apparently it takes us about 4 minutes to change task. So if you go from prospecting and you move to writing an application, to following up with a lead, to being on a webinar like this, you're too scattered and you lose these 4-minute chunks everywhere as you mentally clear your desk or physically clear your desk. So what I'm suggesting is that you clump tasks and say, I follow up at 4 o'clock, between 4 and 5 every day. That's when I do my follow-up calls, or find the time that works for you and your client base. But you clump tasks together so that you work through them in a much more efficient way. You also delegate. Now, some of you are sat there head in hands going, who have I got to delegate to? But I work on my own. I work out of my home office. There's nobody to delegate to. Well, yes and no. I'm in the same kind of position. That's the way I've chosen to run my business. But there are people that I can delegate to, and it kind of comes a little bit to outsourcing. But also I've arranged with my wife that there's certain household tasks that I just don't do because it interferes with my business. And so I'm able to delegate certain amounts of stuff to my wife. And sitting down with your family and understanding what it is that's causing noise in your business, where the family and household stuff is leaking into your business, stop that, put up some walls, delegate, make sure that the sons and daughters, etc., if you have them, are pulling their weight. So even if you don't have employees on your team, there are still people you can delegate stuff to. Now, outsourcing. I have a lady in the Philippines who I pay, I think it's $7 an hour to run my newsletter. A newsletter is very vital to me, and I suspect it's vital to the health of many of your practices. But I don't have the time, and I'm not very, well, certainly I'm very inefficient when I do spend the time writing and managing my email, my email newsletter. So I've outsourced that for $7 an hour. So we go back to my hourly rate. Is that lower than my hourly rate? You bet it is. So it's better off outsourced. Just today, on your behalf, I was contacting somebody through Fiverr.com. And if you've never been to Fiverr.com, you need to go there. Fiverr, so 2 R's in Fiverr.com. For $5, there's itinerant people out there on the web, and you can see whether they're any good or not through the reports that they get. Will do stuff for you. So if you have phone calls to return that you can't get to, or people you need to follow up on, or whatever, there's people on Fiverr.com who for $5 an hour will follow up for you and get you the information that you need, so that you can go process the information. So that's what I'm going to be doing going forward. When I get too full of referrals and things, I'm having somebody on Fiverr.com ring them and say, look, I've got Rupert's diary here. I'm going to book you an appointment in there. There's no sales involved. There's no persuasion involved. These people want to meet me. I just haven't got the time to get around to follow up with them. So outsource what you can, and it's cheaper than you think. Stop thinking $20 an hour for a virtual assistant, or $25 an hour, or whatever it is. That can be done, but there's way cheaper ways of doing it. Other things you can do is share. One of the great things about VERICO is that you've got a lot of people in the same boat as you. So who can you share a PA, a virtual assistant with, or whatever, who's more focused on mortgage broking to do those sort of things for you? So it could be within your office or within your region, or heck, it doesn't really matter where they are in Canada. As long as they understand mortgage broking a little bit, they can add way more value than somebody else maybe could. So who can you share resources with that is going to take, free up time for you? We come back to this issue of focus and concentration. We know that if you, I don't know if you heard, that was my doorbell ringing, but I'm busy doing this now. I'm not answering my door. I'm not answering phone calls. I'm not answering emails whilst I'm doing this work. So if you focus and concentrate your time in blocks, that's the mail coming through the letterbox, focus and concentrate your time in blocks, you'll find yourself much more efficient because, again, we've talked to this issue of 4 minutes wasted here, 4 minutes wasted there as you change your focus and your attention. So block schedule, and we'll come on to this in a minute, and concentrate and block out any other distractions as best you can. And then lastly, have discipline. So if you say that you're going to do prospecting only between 10 and 11 every day, then don't take walk-ins, don't take phone calls, don't answer emails, don't get distracted by Google or Facebook or Twitter or whatever else that looks easier than prospecting. Have the discipline to stick to it. And what you'll find is that your time expands massively because you're not shredding it. So those are some 6 tips there for how you can get more time so that you can then create time for entrepreneurial stuff. What that looks like is, here's an example. It doesn't matter that you can't read it. That's kind of partly deliberate. But this is an Excel spreadsheet example of a colleague of mine. And these are 15-minute segments. I'm going to put a pointer here. These are 15-minute segments down here of her day. She's on the East Coast, so she does the Pacific times down here. And what you can see is she does personal development, reading and writing up here, early part of the early days of the week when she's freshest. These green blocks are existing clients. These yellow blocks are times where she would like to fill other clients. She's got admin time specifically dedicated here in orange. Her entrepreneur time here is a call with her coach that she spends time just thinking. That's her hour there every week thinking about entrepreneurial stuff. And also what I want you to notice here is in between these blocks of time, there's unallocated time. And what we know from research and certainly from personal experience is that our energy levels peak and trough and peak and trough and peak and trough. And we need to recognize that. What research has shown is that after about an hour and a half, you tend to tap out in terms of the quality of work that you are able to deliver. So give yourself a 15-minute break, go for a walk, have a cup of coffee, have a chat, do something, get away from the computer, go stretch, do something. And then you can get back to another 90 minutes and another 90 minutes and so on. So acknowledge the fact that you need these ebbs and flows of energy throughout the day, and don't pretend that you can blast through at 100% for the whole time. It just doesn't work like that. So block schedule, and as we said before, let's be disciplined about that block schedule. And remember that you want to be putting in, putting in this highly paid time. As Brian Tracy would say, the highest paid work in the world is thinking. So let's put some of that time in for us and make it totally sacrosanct. Put some of this more highly paid work here in, acknowledging that this does need to get done, but as much as we can, we delegate this, we share it, we outsource it, we're passing this off to other people to create more time for this and even more time for that. And doing higher value technical stuff, because there'll be some technical stuff which you have to pay somebody $90, $100 an hour to do for you. You do that. You just don't do the stuff at $25,000, $30,000 a year. So if you do nothing else as a result of this session, please block some time in your diary for entrepreneurial time. It's going to be so critical, so crucial. So when you do that, what are you going to do with that time? Well, here are some great questions that, when you spend time in manager thinking, ask these questions. When you spend time in entrepreneur thinking, you might want to examples like this. So who were my best clients this year? Why? Who were my most profitable clients this year? And then that might be different because the best clients might be most fun to work with, but made a decent margin, but not massive. But they were fun and they were quick, and per hour deal, they may actually have been better than some of these ones where I made a higher ticket item, but I worked 15 times harder on them. So those are the manager questions. The entrepreneur questions are, so where can I find more of these people? What happens if I start asking for referrals? What happens if I stop going for coffee with everybody who wants it? What happens if I carry on with the things that I'm really good at? How can I differentiate myself or us as a brand? How can I do that? What would I have to do to do that? And what do my clients really need from us that we're not providing right now? Those are great entrepreneur questions. So if for the first hour or two, all you ask yourself was those questions, then you'd be way ahead of the game. So I want to pause at this point and see what questions we have from people, because as I say, I should have triggered a few beliefs and have a few people wanting to challenge this in how it works for you guys out in the field. So what questions do we have around the 3 I's of the entrepreneur?
If anyone wants to ask any questions, you can definitely put them in the chat box here, and Rupert will be happy to answer those for you. Just one quick question was, can you put that last slide back up? I think people were jotting down some of those notes there.
Yeah, sure. And I should have said, if you want to email us at VERICO@focalpointcoaching.com, I'll send you this slide. I'll send you the schematic slide that I showed before with the black border, and there's a bonus we'll get to in a minute. But if rather than write them down, you can just email me at VERICO@focalpointcoaching.com, and you'll get this sent to you.
Perfect. Thank you. So if there's any questions at this point, happy to take some questions. Rupert's happy to take some questions. And if not, then of course Rupert, I know, has a few other things to share with you as well. So
yeah.
There doesn't seem to be too many questions at this point. I mean, maybe they'll trigger a few more here as we go along. But unless there is anyone else has any last-minute questions, but I'll pass it back to you, Rupert.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. So it's having this 3 I's in mind is really key. Whether you, I wouldn't even say just a broker, whether your sole role is brokering mortgages for people, or whether you're running a broader office, a bigger office, the 3 I's is absolutely crucial. And that's why I suggest that you all have the schematic up on your desk or in your notebook or something, so you can regularly review with your people what it is that you're spending your time doing, and get that balance right for you that's appropriate. Because it's not appropriate to spend 95% of your time doing low-value technician-type work. Higher-value technician-type work, sure. Managerial work, great. But let's get this entrepreneurial time in, because these are the key questions which are going to differentiate you and take your business to the next level. And being really cognizant of this hourly rate, of saying, if I want to earn $50 an hour, could I get this done by somebody else at a lower rate? Because if I could, I need to seriously consider outsourcing it and going to find something that I can't possibly, or is above my hourly rate, or that I can't outsource to somebody at a cheaper level. And asking yourself those questions is really key, because it gets you to be creative. And as I say, there's places like Fiverr.com, there is Elance, e-lance.com, where there's all manner of people available to, seeing a comment there, all manner of people out there wanting to do this work for you or help you with this work. So don't try and do it all alone for the sake of $5 or $10, because it's potentially killing your business. And the other thing is this time allocation and block schedules. If your diary is open, ready for anybody and everybody to come in and dictate it to you, then you're going to really struggle to build a meaningful business out of any career, but particularly something like mortgage broking, where you need focused time to really understand the market, to really focus on the client. And I've had several discussions with mortgage brokers about this need to be reactive to clients, need to be on the end of the phone the whole time. And I fundamentally don't believe that that's true. I believe that it sends an odd message to the market if you're available any time to speak with clients. A much more powerful message is, I can see you between this time and that time, because it's in your diary to do that. But the rest of the time you're growing, the rest of the time you're working on your business, not in it. That's a fairly commonly used statement. Michael Gerber started with it in the E-Myth. And if you haven't read the E-Myth Revisited, then it's a very, very good book to read. But really be discipline with these block schedules. I don't do anything else between 10 and 11 on a Monday morning other than sit down and reevaluate my business for the week and set goals and things like that. And my phone's off, my email's off, my whatever. And that's tough, I know, but there are simple things to do. And one tip actually here in terms of block schedules that one of your crew kind of latched onto when I was talking to them before was this need to answer the phone. What if your email, so your phone message said, "Hi, it's me. I can't take your call. I'm busy with clients. Right? I'm busy adding value to other people. I will leave me a message. I will return your call within 2 hours." That gives, I mean, most people when they hear that are going to give you the 2 hours to respond, and that also gives you 2 hours to block schedule something. The worst case is as soon as that 2 hours starts, they ring. As soon as that 2 hours finishes, you get the message and you have to call them right back. But leave me a message, I'll get back to you within 2 hours. Is communication to people, they know when you're going to get back to them. Where it all falls down is when you just say, "Hey, leave me a message," and they don't know when you're going to get back to them. Sure, they might go off and try and find another mortgage broker for them, or feel that you're not communicating with them. But manage their expectations. Say directly in your email footer, email auto response, or in your voicemail auto response. "Hey, look, I'm going to get back to you within 2 working hours. I'm just busy right now. I can't respond immediately." That kind of management of expectations goes a heck of a long way to retaining the clients you fear you'll lose by being, which be super responsive, which, as we said before, then makes you very fragmented and makes you very inefficient. So 3 I's guides you as to where to spend your time, be really cognizant of your hourly rate, and spend time in blocks, and you'll be light years ahead of where you are now. So as we always do, I want you to ask yourself, what are the 3 things I need to start doing immediately? Number 1, if you don't do it already, is block schedule. And if you don't know how to block schedule in Outlook or iCalendar or whatever, then as many of you probably won't, it's not too difficult to do. Either go online and Google it, or ask your office manager, or probably ask your 15-year-old son how to get it done. It's very, very simple. It's just not something maybe many of you have done. So that's absolutely number 1. Maybe there should be 2 other things you want to start doing. In order to do that, what are you going to stop doing? You need to create the space to start doing things by stopping doing things. What's not serving you? Stop doing those. And hopefully I've already, going through this, we've pointed out the things that you need to continue doing that you're already doing well. It might be, for some of you, block scheduling or having that closed door policy. I'm going to continue doing that even though I feel bad about it. No, don't feel bad about it, because it works perfectly well in this model, and it works very well for your business. So here's the email address. The bonuses this week are that you'll get that 3 I's slide. I'll also send you that list of questions. And this week, you're also going to get a book, an e-copy of a book called Eat That Frog. It's a long-time best-selling book. It's kind of seminal in the world of time management, because it's one of Brian's best books. It's a simple message. It just says, get the thing done in the morning that will start to open up and be easier. So eat the frog in the morning. But send me the email at VERICO@focalpointcoaching.com, and you'll get the 3 I's slide and that book and the list of questions. Before we go, I just want to say 2 weeks' time, it's Mike Alpert's second session on social media. That's the second of his initial series of 3 on social media to help you get more of these referrals that you then need to time manage because you're going to get so swamped with leads and people calling you. So what I've done is set up the framework that Mike's going to fill in for you next week, or sorry, 2 weeks' time. So that's it. Want to keep it nice and tight and nice and short. If there's, I'll open it up again for questions now. But other than that, let's get out there, get block scheduled, and see what it does to your effectiveness and efficiency, and how much more you can do in that hour, 2 hours a week you spend really focusing on the important questions in your business.
Great, thank you, Rupert. There is a question about about you had the sample of the block schedule. I know that's only a sample, but it looks like a couple people would like to have more of a closer look at that sample. I don't know if there's an easier a visual that even we could forward out with the attachment as a sample in the follow-up email that we could use, Rupert, but just to kind of give people that feel of how you block your schedules and others can block their schedule.
I tell you what, Sean, what I'll do is if people want to email us at VERICO with that specific question, I'll send you top 10 tips on block scheduling. Because the example here is unrelated. It's about coaching. We need to book hour and a half schedules for coaching sessions. That's not necessarily going to apply in your business, but I'll send you a top 10 tips for how to block schedule, and especially if you want to tell me which calendar program that you're using, I'll give you some specific tips on what you'd need to do with that calendar program.
That'd be great. So that was at VERICO at focalpointcoaching.com. So, which maybe we'll flip to that last slide there again for that email, so everyone can jot that down. And of course, send your emails to Focal Point for, of course, the free ebook, the slides as well. And then again, I ask every time for those that have been on the call and those that haven't, let us know. Again, we want to continue to build this. Talk to your peers, talk to your other VERICO members, talk to people in your office. Share these ideas. These will all be recorded. You will receive a communication typically within 2 business days from us with the full recording of the video, the link to the free ebook, the email address as well. But share your comments. It's always nice to share some comments of success stories that you've had, something you've implemented, something you've enjoyed, or something you'd like to see even as well. So again, Rupert, Focal Point, thank you very, very much. Another great demonstration, some great tools that, personally I love them myself. I love sitting in on these calls, and I can take a little bit of something away every single time. So we thank you all again. We enjoy the rest of the week. We're nearing the end of the year here, so it's not only time to wrap up 2012, but definitely sit down and think a lot about 2013. And Rupert just gave you some great points to block your time and do that. Again, enjoy, and we'll talk to you soon.